Hello all, welcome to Vignan's Foundation for Science, Technology and Research. Myself Parimala, I am working as an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. Today we are going to discuss about the concept algorithms. Let us discuss what are the topics we are going to in our today's concept. Now see, first we will move to the concept how the algorithms are useful in our daily life, and then followed by that we will discuss about the definition of an algorithm. What is an algorithm? With the characteristics of those algorithms, what are the characteristics followed by those algorithms, followed by the types of algorithms with some examples. So these are the concepts we are going to cover in this presentation. Now coming to the one by one. First we discuss about the algorithms in our daily life. How these algorithms are useful in our daily life? Let us discuss with some example. Now see, here take a simple example, making a call to your friend. How we make a call to your friend? Good. First we need to take a mobile. What next? We need to type the number. Then press the dial button. The call will be connected to your friend. If you want to disconnect, then we will press this reject button. So while making a call to our friend, the first step we are following here is taking a mobile, that is our first step, and then we need to type the number. After that we need to press the button dial. So by following these three steps, we are making a call to our friend. Let us discuss another example. How to go to your supermarket. First suppose, if we want to purchase some items. So what is the process involved in that? Let us discuss. Move to your supermarket. So first we should go to your supermarket. Good. After that, enter into the supermarket. After entering into that, select the items. What are the items required to us? What we need? So choose those items. And then go to your billing section. And then pay the money. After that, exit. Right? First suppose, if we want to purchase some items, what process we are following here? First, we are going to your supermarket. After that, we should enter into the supermarket and then select the items what are required to us. Go to your billing section, pay the amount and then exit from the supermarket. So what is the process involved in that? Going to a supermarket, entering into that, choose the items, then pay the bill and then exit. So this is one of the process usually we follow while selecting or while go to your supermarket. Discuss one more example. How to make a coffee. How to make it? Take a bowl. Take some milk into that. Keep it in a stove. Boil it for some time. Add sugar to this. And then add coffee powder to this. Boil it for 1 minute. Off the stove and you can serve it. So what is the process we have here to make a coffee? First, we need to take a cup, a bowl, and then take the milk. This is our second step. Keep it on a stove. This is the third step. Switch on or turn on the flame. This is the next step. Add sugar to this. The next step. And add a coffee powder to it. The next step. And then we need to serve it. So this is our next step. What is the process we are following here to make a coffee? That is, first bowl, milk, stove, flame, sugar, coffee, turn off and serve. This is the process. If you discuss these, if we see these many examples, what we discussed till now, making a phone call, going to a supermarket, preparing a coffee. Each one is having a specific procedure, nothing but a process. There we are following everything in a specific order. That order itself is called an algorithm. Let us move to some another examples. How to find a route? Nowadays, everyone we are using the Google Maps. This is a well-known example to everyone. How it will be? How this Google Map is working? See here, this is the example Google Map. First, we should open the Google Map, that app, and then you need to decide from which you want to move. Is it from your current position or from somewhere? If you want to move from somewhere, you need to select a specific source location. There we have one more option. If you want to move from the current location, there you can select it as a current location. Move to your present location. So, the current location will be automatically selected. That is nothing but our source location. And then select the destination location. To where? From address is nothing but the source address or the source location. To where you want to go? That becomes a destination. So, first we need to take the source address or the source location and then destination location. First select the source location and then destination location. After that we need to press the start direction button. Then the Google Map will automatically give the direction to us to reach the destination. So, what is the process we are following here? First we are selecting the source location or the current location and then find or give the destination location. Then you need to press the button start direction. So, what is the process here? 3 steps we have. Selecting the source location, selecting the destination location and then the start button. So, this is the process involved in finding the route using the Google Map. See another example. Booking an online ticket. We want to book a bus ticket through online. In the present scenario, in the present digital technology or the digital environment, everything is online only. Everything we are performing by sitting at our homes. We can book a bus ticket, we can book a train ticket, we can book a movie ticket, we can do online shopping, everything we can do by sitting where we are. Now see the process what involved here to book a bus ticket through online. What we have to do? We have to select the website first. Here we have multiple number of websites we have to book the ticket through online. Select one of the website. That is the first step we need to do. And then select the date and location. On which date you want to move, from where you want to move. That we need to identify next. After that, we need to select the type of service. Which type of service you want to choose. Is it AC or non-AC or sleeper or seated or something. So, which type of service you need. That service need to be selected as the next one. Followed by that, we need to check the availability. Okay, good. Everything we are giving. We selected the website, we entered the date and location and the specific service also we selected. One of the important one we need to identify here, it is the availability of that service. Is that bus is available or not? That we need to check on that given date from the given location. That is nothing but the availability of the bus. Followed by that, identify the fare. Right? After selecting all these date, time, location, everything, service and all, we need to check the fare, how much it is. Select the seat. Is it the window seat or the side seat or upper or lower or middle or something. that need to be selected next. Followed by that, we need to give the basic information of the passenger. What is the name of the passenger? Age, their Aadhaar number, etc. How many passengers are traveling? How many kids? How many elders? How many senior citizens? The basic information what is asking by that website or the specific service, that should be entered by the user. That is nothing but filling the details. We need to pay the amount. After paying that, syncing. Good. We selected that. Payment is nothing but here it gives the amount. How much amount need to be paid? How many seats you selected? For that, how much amount need to be paid? That will be specified in this payment option, step. And coming to the syncing, the website, the service website, what we selected here, this will be connected to a specific bank service, because we need to pay, we are paying through online only. Is it by using the debit card or credit card or something, or online banking or internet banking or mobile banking? Here it gives those many options to us. We need to select which bank it is, which mode of transaction you want to do. So that should be selected here. When we select this website, the website what we selected here to book a bus, that website will be redirected to the respective bank. Using that, we need to pay the amount, and after completing the transaction process, again it will come back to the website and it issues the ticket to us. So this is the process involved in booking a bus ticket, right? Now, see another. What are the steps involved in ATM transfer machine or ATM deposit or ATM credit machine? What are the steps we need to follow while using or withdrawing the money using the ATM? Using ATM, not only the withdrawals, we can deposit the amount also. What are the steps here? Here we considered an example to withdraw the money using the ATM machine. So what are the steps we have? First, insert the ATM card. After inserting the ATM card, we need to select the language. There it asks which language you want to choose. Is it English or Hindi or something? So that language should be selected next. And then we should enter a 4-digit ATM pin. After inserting that, we need to type the transaction, which type of transaction you want to perform. Is it a credit or it a debit, means we want to withdraw or we want to deposit the amount. And which type of service also it asks. Which type of service account means, is it a saving bank account or current account? There are different types of accounts. So which type of account it is, that need to be selected next. Type of account. Followed by that, enter the amount, how much amount you want to withdraw. Enter that amount. Then take the cash and take the printed receipt. And then if you want to continue the another transaction, you can continue or you can exit. So what are the steps involved in this? First we need to insert the ATM card and then select the language, followed by the 4-digit ATM pin, and then select the type of transaction, which type of transaction you want to perform. Is it a credit or a debit, means withdraw or deposit. Select the type of service or type of account. Is it a saving bank account or the current account? Then how much amount you want to withdraw. Insert that amount or type that amount. Take the cash. Take the printed receipt. If you want to continue with another transaction, you can continue, otherwise you can exit. So this is the process involved in collecting or withdrawing the amount from an ATM machine. Now see, till now we discussed so many examples. Making a coffee, making a call to your friend, online shopping or supermarket, withdrawing the amount from the ATM machine, likewise booking an online bus ticket. So these many examples we discussed. If we see all these examples, everything is nothing but a procedure. We should follow that process, right? Now, what is an algorithm? Come to our technical topic. What is an algorithm? And what does it do? Let us see. Algorithm is nothing but a step-by-step instruction to solve a specific problem. A step-by-step instruction, a specific problem. If you have a specific problem, what is the process we are following? What are the steps need to be followed to solve that is called as an algorithm. In all the examples what we discussed previously, in every example we followed a specific procedure. If we take a phone call, first we collected a phone, type the number, press the dial button and the call will be connected to your friend, talk to him and stop the connection, press the end button. So what is the process here? Taking a phone, that is the first step. Dial the number or type the number, second step. Press the dial button, talk to him, close, right? Similarly, taking a or booking a bus ticket, what is the process we use there? Select the website, then which type of service, date, location, fare, paying the money, everything. So everything is nothing but a step-by-step process. That's why algorithm is called as a step-by-step instructions, a step-by-step process to solve a specific problem. What is the problem here? Booking a bus ticket is the problem. Withdraw the money from the ATM, that is the problem. Prepare a coffee is the problem. Make a call as a problem. So these are the problems we have. So first we need to identify the problem, what we want to do, what is our task. Based on that, we need to solve it using that specific procedure. What process we are following here to solve that specific problem is nothing but an algorithm. Then, in our daily life or in a human life, how this algorithm will be used. Our life itself is an example to an algorithm. Why? Because usually the first stage of a human being is as a kid. After completing this stage, then only he can enter into the next stage, child, and then to teenage or middle age, and then to old age. Likewise, our life itself represents an algorithm. After completing this step, then only we can come to the next stage. After completing this, then only we can come to the next stage. Likewise, after completing the previous one, then only we can come to the next level. Yes or no? Take the same example which we discussed previously, making a coffee. What we need to take first? We need to take a bowl and then add some milk to that and boil it for some time. This is the process we should follow. First we should take the bowl. Can we take the milk directly without taking the bowl? Or can we add a sugar directly? Can we take the first item as the coffee powder or a sugar without taking a bowl or without taking a milk? No. We should follow a procedure, a step-by-step procedure. That step-by-step procedure itself called as an algorithm. In that, our brain acts as an operating system. What is an operating system? Which performs some task. Our brain itself acts as an operating system. Whatever the action you want to perform, that should be operated by the brain only. That's why our lifestyle, nothing but an algorithm, will complete this stage and then only we can reach to the next level or the next stage or next age. While we are moving from one level to another level or one step to the another step, parallelly our brain will grow like that and it increases its power and it can increase its ability to think on something or to identify the new things and all. So, whatever the actions we will perform in these stages, that will be performed with our brain only. That's why our brain acts as an operating system. What are the features of the algorithm? These algorithms are used in so many applications. For example, artificial intelligence, big data, machine learning, robotics and deep learning. These are the present and a trending technology which uses the algorithms in the current technological life. All these are the technologies or the trending technologies nowadays in use. See, this is the big data. Here it use data science, artificial intelligence, big data analytics, big data, descriptive analysis, machine learning and customer analysis, Hadoop. These are the different varieties of the technologies which are in use in the present days. All these technologies use the algorithms. Without the algorithm, nothing is there to perform. That much important the algorithm is. Algorithm is not only for the technical, it is for everything. It is for technical purpose as well as the human general life or the real-time purpose or real life purpose. Now see the characteristics of algorithms. It is having so many types of characteristics. Let us discuss one by one. First and important characteristic of the algorithm is well-defined input and then well-defined output, finiteness, feasible, language independent, clear and unambiguous. These are the varieties of the characteristics of algorithms. Let us move to one by one. Algorithm, the first important characteristic of the algorithm is input. The input is nothing but what content we are giving to our system or what content we are taking is nothing but an input. That input may not be required all the times. Without taking the input also, we can perform the task. So, input is one of the important, but without input also we can perform the task. So, an algorithm may or may not require an input. See the next characteristic, that is the output. Output is nothing but what it produces to us. That is called as output. After completing, take the example. Preparing a coffee, okay, good, we collected a bowl, milk we added, sugar, coffee powder, we boiled, everything we completed. What we get finally? A coffee. Coffee is nothing but our output. Similarly, booking a ticket. What is the output there? What we get finally? We are booking the ticket. The printed bus ticket will be reached to the user. That we can download. We are booking, that is the output. Coming to the example of that Google map, what is the output there? We reach to the destination. So, reaching to the destination is nothing but the output, right? So, whatever the task we perform, the input may not be required, but the output is mandatory. So, each algorithm is expected to produce at least one result. A minimum one result it should produce. Without getting the output, is there any need of performing the task? Is it required or not? Yes, it is required. So, even though input may or may not require, but it should produce at least one output. See the next one, definiteness. Each instruction must be clear and unambiguous. What is this clear and unambiguous? Clarity. Clear. So, the instructions what I am giving to you, if it is clear, then only you can perform the task in a good way. If not, what will happen? Sure, it give a wrong output, right? If I direct you to how to make a coffee in a good way, If that instructions what I have given to you is in a specific order, then it is good only. Sure we get the output, sure we get a good coffee. First suppose, instead of adding a sugar to it, if I tell you to add a salt, what will happen there? Is we get a good coffee? No. So, each instruction must be clear and unambiguous, means what instruction we are providing to the system or what instruction we are giving to others should be very clear. The next characteristic is finiteness. What is a finiteness? It should contain finite number of steps. Take it. Repeat the same example. Preparing a coffee. What I will tell you, so if the coffee is boiled for a minute or the milk is boiled for a minute, then you have to turn off and you can serve it. If I miss that step, turn off, or if you reach it to the temperature which is usually preferred by the users, then you need to turn off the stove. If I miss that step, I forgot to tell you to turn off the stove, what will happen? I didn't give the instruction to you to turn off. What you will do there? You keep on boiling. What will happen at the end? We never get a single drop of coffee. So, it should be finite. We should clearly tell boil for 1 minute, boil for 2 minutes. Likewise, we should specify that we call as finiteness. So, the instructions of the algorithms are executed. The algorithm should terminate after finite number of steps. Clear and unambiguous. Algorithm should be clear and unambiguous. Clear and unambiguous. Here already we discussed. And the definiteness, clear and unambiguous, nothing but the instruction what we are specifying, it should be clear. Language independent. Language independent. See, I am telling you to prepare the coffee. Yourself you are making a coffee. If you send the same instruction to one of your friend, can that friend make a coffee easily by following these instructions? Yes, but to whom I told? I told that instruction procedure or a coffee making procedure to you only. You are forwarding the same to some others. They can also do that. And the same you forwarded to some other country people. They can also follow the same. So, the instruction what we are specifying, that is not only restricted to yourself. If once the instruction was prepared, that can be used by anyone. Similarly, once the algorithm is prepared, that can be implemented in any of the programming language. So many types of programming languages we have like C, CPP, Java, .NET and so on. Once we have the algorithm, that using that algorithm, we can develop a C program, we can develop a CPP program, we can develop a Java program or etc. That we call as language independent. Independent means which is not depending on any specific language. So, the algorithm what we are developing should follow these characteristics. If it follow all these or if it satisfy all these, then that algorithm is called as a good algorithm. Example, first suppose if we are writing an algorithm, here we should follow 3 prerequisites. That prerequisites are nothing but the requirements here. The first requirement is nothing but the input. What is the input? On what data we need to perform an operation. So, what we are taking or what we are giving to your system is nothing but an input. What is our input? That we should identify first, followed by the task to be performed. What is the task? The task should be very clear. We should know the task, what we need to perform, followed by output, what it should produce. First suppose, take the same example what we discussed in our previous session. Making a coffee. What is the task here? Need to prepare a coffee, right? So our task here is to prepare the coffee. What is the input? What we require to prepare the coffee? That is nothing but an input. Bowl, milk, sugar, coffee powder, stove, all these becomes the inputs. If we have that input, then we can go through the next step. The other step is nothing but the task. What is the task? Preparing a coffee. Preparation, making a coffee is nothing but our task. What is the output? What we get finally? Coffee. Our input is nothing but milk, sugar, coffee powder and all is nothing but our input. The task is nothing but preparing a coffee. Output is a coffee. Likewise, before starting an algorithm, we should identify what are the inputs and then we should clear about the task. What is our task? What we need to perform? What it should produce? Nothing but output. So we should be aware of these three before starting the algorithm or before preparing the algorithm. The instructions what we are giving to our friend is completely different from the instructions what we are providing to our system. Because the instructions given to our friend is nothing but a human being. He has a brain, he has a thinking ability. So if we tell one instruction, they can analyze it and they can extend it. But coming to a computer, it is a machine. So everything we should give clearly. That's why the instructions what we are providing to a human being is completely different from the instructions what we give to a system. Let us discuss an example. Here we are telling our friend to prepare a boiled water. How to boil a water? That is the task we have. What is the task with us? Boil water. So take the prerequisites. What are the requirements we need to consider first? Input, task to be performed and output. What is the input here? What we need to take to boil the water? We need to take a bowl, take a water, stove and etc. Those are the input material we need. After that, what is the task? Need to boil the water. What is the output? Boiled water, right? So before starting or before identifying the algorithm, before preparing it, we should identify these three requirements. What is the input? What is the task? What is the output? Now see the instructions, how we give an instruction to our friend to complete this task. That is, see, the kettle is nothing but the input, water is also the input and the task is nothing but boiling the water as well as filling the kettle with water. That is the task need to be performed. And the output is nothing but the boiled water. So these are the prerequisites. So before starting the algorithm first, we should gather the information like this. We should clear about all this. What input need to be taken, what is the task need to be performed, what it should produce. Now see, how we give an instruction to our friend. First we need to start, that comes under the step 1. What is at the first step, step 1? How we tell? Fill the kettle with water. Fill the kettle with water means, so if you tell like this, your friend will take that kettle to a tap and he pours some water into it. Likewise, he fill that kettle with some water. And then place it on the stove and turn on the burner. What we are telling next? You keep it on the stove and turn on the burner. Followed by, turn off the burner when the water get boiled. How we are telling that instruction to your friend, to a human being? If it is boiled, you just switch off the or you just turn off the burner. Likewise, we will give an instruction. So, if we simply tell like this, the human being, your friend can easily prepare a boiled water. Now see how the same task, boiled water task, how we tell to our friend. Now see this. The instruction to that is, to a computer. How we tell these instructions to a computer? First, put the kettle under the tap and then turn on the tap. Check if 90% of the kettle is filled. If it is okay, good, we can move to the next step. If not, then repeat the above step. If 90% of the kettle is not filled, then we should repeat that same step. Means we need to keep on pouring the water into the kettle and then turn off the tap. Right? If you observe these 5 steps, what we are giving to our computer, these 5 instructions are equal to the step 1 and step 2. See here, fill the kettle with water. Fill the kettle with water means simply we are telling to our friend that you fill the kettle with water. But the same instruction how we are giving to a computer, likewise the detailed instructions should be provided to a computer. Then only it can do correctly. Means these 5 instructions are equal to step 1. Next, place the kettle on the burner. Turn on the burner. Check if the water is 100 degrees centigrade or not. Then, if it is good, then we can off the burner. If not, we need to boil it for some time. Means repeat the step. If it is okay, turn off the burner. If you observe the difference between these 2 types of algorithms, this is also an algorithm and it is also an algorithm. What is the main difference between these 2? When we see the instructions of the computer, the detailed instructions should be given to a computer. Everything should be given as an instruction, then only it can do the task perfectly. Right? Is it clear? The difference between the instructions to a computer as well as instruction to a friend. Now see, take another example. How to write an algorithm to a task that is driving to a friend's house. Here our task is driving to a friend's house. Now we need to write an algorithm here. How to write the algorithm? What we need to do before starting the algorithm? First we should get the requirements. What are the requirements? What is the input? What is the task? What is the output? That 3 we should identify first. What is the input here? Is input compulsory to all the algorithms? May or may not. So coming to here, in our example, the input is nothing but driving to a friend's house. So either by car or either by motorbike or something. So that we need, or auto or bus or etc. So that vehicle is required. It's nothing but an input. What is our task? What task need to be performed here? Driving or moving to the friend's house. That is the task. What is the output? Reach to the friend's house. Right? So input is nothing but the vehicle. Output, the task is nothing but moving to a friend's house or driving, nothing but journey. The output is nothing but reach the friend's house. These are the 3 prerequisites. So after identifying the prerequisites, after getting the requirements, now we can start the algorithm. Take the keys. Find your keys. Walk out of the house. Exit from the house. Close the door. We should close the house door. Lock it. Open the car door. Next, get into the car. Then, put the key into the ignition and so on. So likewise, we will give an instructions how to move to our friend's house. Not only like this, the algorithm you can tell in your own way. The algorithm is nothing but step-by-step instructions which we are providing or which we are giving to complete a task is nothing but an algorithm. Clear? Now, what is the algorithm for getting into the college? What is the algorithm to do the online shopping? What is the algorithm for booking an online ticket to go to a movie? Practice. Coming to the next one, types of algorithms. What are the types? Here basically we have three different types of algorithms. The first one is a sequential algorithm. The first type of algorithm is sequential. Second type is selection algorithms. Next one is iterative algorithms. So we have three types of algorithms. First one is selection algorithm, sequential algorithm. Second one, selection algorithm. Third one, iterative algorithms. So these are the three types of algorithms. These are the three basic types of algorithms. Now move one by one. Sequential algorithm. Sequential. The name clearly specifies the meaning of it. Sequence. What is the meaning of sequence? Order. The order what we specified following the same order itself is called sequence. Right? Now see, sequential algorithm, as the name suggests, it follows a series or the sequential flow in which the flow depends. So the order what we specified, it follows the same order. Such algorithms are called sequential algorithms. Now see the example to that. Design an algorithm to add two numbers and display the result. This is the task we have. First find the requisites or the requirements. What are the requirements? First one is nothing but input. What is the input? First see the question. Read the question properly. Design an algorithm to add two numbers. How many numbers? Two numbers. So our input is nothing but here two numbers, that is the input. So input is two numbers. Then what is the task? What we need to perform? Addition. Task to be performed is addition is our task. What is the output? The sum. The sum of the two numbers what we considered is displayed as the output to the user. So likewise, first we need to identify the three prerequisites, three requirements, then we can start the algorithm. See, first step obviously it is the start. Next, declare the three integers or three variables. Why we considered here A, B and C? Here how many values we are taking? Two numbers. If you see a mathematical program or mathematical problem, if you want to take a number, some 5 or 6 or 10 or something, how we take that? How we write that step in the maths in a problem? We'll simply write like let x equal to 5, or we write like assume some x equal to 5, right? We use like this, let x equal to 5 or assume x equal to 5. Why we are assuming x there to assign a value? That we take as a variable. If we want to use a value in the problem, we should assign that value to one of the variable. So wherever we need that value, in place of that value, we'll take that variable name. So wherever you want to use the value 5, instead of using a 5, there we simply represent x. Similarly, in programming also, while taking a value or while using that value in a program, instead of taking that value directly, we assign a name to that we call as a variable. Is it clear? Because of that, here we considered 3. Why 3 we considered here? Why not only 2? Because here only 2 variables, 2 values we are taking. Our input is only 2 numbers, addition of 2 numbers only. So A and B, not only A, B, C, you can take X, Y, Z, P, Q, R, anything. For example, here I considered it as A, B, C. Okay, good. For reading two values A and B, two are sufficient. Then why I am moving to C? Why here I considered one more variable? Because our task is addition. After addition, assume A you considered as 2 and B you considered as 3. What is our task? Addition. Good. After addition, what is our output? What it produced was 5. Sum of these two, 2 plus 3. What it produced? 5. It is a new number. So, to store that new value, we are taking here one more variable, that is nothing but C. That is why here we considered 3 variables A, B and C. It is not compulsory to use the same terms A, B, C. You can take any character as your comfort. Right? You can take as X, Y, Z, M and P, X, Y, Z and something. Anything you can take there. And then take the values of A and B. On which values you want to find the sum, or on which value you want to apply the addition. So, take that two values and assign those two values to A as well as on B. The first value you need to take as A, assume A equal to something, assume B equal to something. Likewise, the two values what you want to take, assign those two values to A and B. Add the two values, add the two, so it becomes A plus B. Next, store the output in step 4, nothing but here it is C. Store the result in a C and then stop, print the value and then stop it. So, our sixth step is nothing but step 6 is print C. Step 7 equal to stop, right. So, to perform this action, this task, so it taken 7 steps. What are those 7 here? First step we started, second step declare 3 variables, third step initialize those two, assign the values to A and B and then find the sum, store that output in a variable C and then print the value. Finally, we need to stop the algorithm. So, if you observe this algorithm clearly, what order we followed, which step we executed first or which step we performed first, we started from first step, after that step 2 followed by 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, right. So, is this order we followed or any other order we followed here to perform this task? The order what we specified here, the same order we followed here also to execute the task. That is why it is called sequential. Clear? So, sequential in the sense the order what we specified, it follows the same order. Such algorithms are called sequential algorithm. See the next one. What is the algorithm to convert the temperature from Celsius to the Fahrenheit form? Algorithm to convert the temperature from Celsius to Fahrenheit. How to convert? There we have a formula to convert the temperature from one form to other form, right? Good. Before starting the algorithm, first identify the requirements. What are the requirements? First we need to identify the input and then task followed by the output. What is the input here? What we need to take? What we should produce as input to the algorithm? Nothing but conversion from Celsius to Fahrenheit. So, we should give a Celsius temperature, then only we can convert the Celsius temperature to the Fahrenheit form. So, what we have to give here? What is our input? Our input is nothing but temperature in Celsius form. That is the input. What is the output? What is the task? What is the task? Conversion. Convert. That is the task. Our task here is conversion. What is the output? The same temperature but in foreign heat form. The output of this is temperature only but in foreign heat form. Now see the algorithm. How to write? Start. Okay, good. Usually while writing the algorithms, the first step should be a start and the last should be the stop. So any algorithm, usually the algorithm, it may be any type of algorithm, it may be a sequential, selection or iterative. In general, the algorithm will start with the common step start and will end with the step stop. Between these two start and stop, we write the logic. Okay, that's why usually the first step will take as start all the ways. Next, declare two variables C and F. Why we need to take here the two variables C and F? How many inputs we are taking here? Only one input. That is in Celsius form. Okay, good. So assume C is a variable which is for storing the temperature in Celsius form. Okay, good. Then why we need F here? What we get? What is the output of our algorithm? We should get the temperature in foreign heat form. So the output we are getting in a foreign heat form. To store that foreign heat temperature, here we considered one more variable, that is F. So C is using for storing the input. That's why C is called as the input variable. So the variable which we are using to store the input is called input variable, and the F we are using to store the output, means the temperature which is in the foreign heat form. So this F is called output variable, which we are using to store the output. That's why here two variables we considered. Okay, good. We declared the two. What next? We need to read the temperature in Celsius form. So read that value. Read the input temperature in Celsius form. Good. After that, we need to convert. So we have a formula to convert the temperature from Celsius to Fahrenheit, that is C into 9/5 plus 32 will give a Fahrenheit temperature. So this is the formula we use to convert the temperature from Celsius to Fahrenheit. So if we use this expression, the value what we considered here, Celsius temperature, will be substituted in place of C, and it perform this expression, it evaluate that expression, that output will be finally stored in the variable F, right. So here this is the input, good, that input we perform. The task we did in step 4. After that we need to print the Fahrenheit temperature, that output need to be displayed. Display the temperature in Fahrenheit form. So how we have to display? Where is the temperature in the Fahrenheit form? That Fahrenheit temperature we stored in the variable F. So in step 5, here it display the value of F. F in the sense which is having a temperature in Fahrenheit form. So that result we are displaying in step 5. Anything else here to do? No, we completed. What next? Stop. Is it clear? So which order we followed here to perform this task, conversion of C to F, conversion of Celsius to Fahrenheit? Which order we followed? This is the order we specified on the board. Okay, good. Which order it followed to execute it? Good. We started and then we declared and then we stored the value of Celsius value, means temperature is Celsius form in a variable C, and then the conversion process we followed by we printed the result as well as we stopped the algorithm. So the order what we specified here as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the same order we followed here to execute such task. So these types of algorithms are called as sequential. So the order what we specified, it follows the same order. Clear? Now, move to the second type, selection algorithms. What is a selection algorithm? Sequential in the sense, the order it follows. As what order we specified as 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on, the same order it used to execute. That's why we call that as a sequential. Here it specifies a selection. What is the meaning of selection? What is the meaning of selection? Selecting. You have two options. You have two works. Which one you will do? If you have only one task, you have no option, so you follow that and you complete that homework. If you have only one with you. If you have two subjects, two works you have, which one you do? There you need to select which one you have to do first and which one you have to do next, or which one you need to do and which one you not interested to do. That is nothing but selection. So based on the selection, that respective algorithm we write. Selection logic simply involves a number of conditions or parameters which decides one out of several written modules. You have multiple options with you. Which one you choose? There you should apply the selection principle. So if you have 4 options, which option will you select? Is it option A or B, C, D? Which one you select? That depends on your conditions, right? So the selection is nothing but based on some condition, you select one among those. That's why such algorithms are called selection algorithms. You may have multiple, but you go through only one. That principle is called selection principle. Such algorithms we call as selection algorithms. See the example. Find whether the taken number is positive or negative. Identifying whether the given number is positive or negative. That is the algorithm need to be complete now. Come to the requirements. What are the requirements we have here? What we need to identify first? First we should identify the input. That is the first requirement. Okay, good. What is the input? What we need to take here? Taken number is positive or negative. Taken number. How many numbers need to be considered here? One number is enough. So I assume it as some A or X or Y or Z or something. Okay, good. That is our input. One number need to be considered. What is the task? What is the task? Whether the number is positive or negative, that we need to identify. Find whether it is a positive number or negative number. So identify. Here our task is identifying. Check whether it is a positive number or a negative number. That is our task. What is the output? What we get here? What we should display? Output is nothing but based on the task what we verified here, what we performed here, you simply tell it as it may be a positive number or a negative number. Take an example. I have given a number like 1 I have given to you and I asked you to tell whether it is a positive or a negative number. I have given you a number 1. You need to tell that is it a positive or a negative number? What you will tell? What I will get from you? Simply you tell it as a positive number. Are you telling it as both positive or negative? No. I will get only one answer, either positive number or a negative number, only one answer, right. So here the output is either positive or negative. First suppose I have given you the number -12. What will you say? That is a negative number, right. either positive or negative. That is our output. So the input is nothing but one value. The output is comparing or checking it is positive or a negative number. That is our task. Coming to the output, just simply we will tell is it positive or negative. Then start the algorithm. Good. Start it. Just we discussed. Each algorithm will commonly uses two steps. One is start, which is at the beginning of the algorithm. One is stop at the end of the algorithm. Right? So usually the first step is a start. Next, take the input. That we can also call as a reader number. We need to take input is assume it as A or B or X or something. Next, check whether the number is positive or negative. How to check it? How to identify whether the number is positive or negative? If the number is less than 0, such numbers we call as the negative numbers. The number which is greater than 0 is called a positive number. That we need to perform in this step 3. This we can call as a condition. What is the condition? Is the number less than 0 or greater than 0? That is the condition. Based on this condition, based on the output of that condition, we tell whether it is a positive or negative. If this condition is true, assume the number here it is minus 12. Here this number we considered as minus 12. So we are checking here it as minus 12 is less than 0. Is it true or false? Minus 12, is it less than 0 or greater than 0? Yes, it is true. Minus 12 is less than 0. Then means if it is true, what we have to tell? Print that number n is a negative number. If this condition is true, then it is executing a step 4 and it displays as a negative number. When it is true, take the other number. First of here a number I considered as 3 and the condition I am checking 3 less than 0. Is it true or false? False. If it is true, then only it comes to step 4. If the condition is false, means else, it comes to step 5. When it comes to step 5, when the condition is false, when that condition is false, then it comes to step 5. In step 5, what we are doing, what we are telling, print that number as a positive number. If you see these two steps, step 4 and 5, it executes either 4 or 5, that based on the condition result. If this given number is true, if the condition is true, then it executes only step 4 and then it moves to the next step 6, that is stop. Without executing step 5, it directly moves to step 6. It directly comes to step 6. If the condition is false, then it comes from step 5 to step 6. Right? So, if the condition is true, once see the flow here. Once see the flow. What is the process here? First step we started and then step 2, okay, good, and come to step 3. In the first step we started and in the second step we have taken the number and in the third step here the condition we are checking is n less than 0 or greater than 0, that we are verifying. If this is true, then which step it executes? If it is true, it is moving to step 4 followed by step 6. If this is false, then it comes to step 5 followed by step 6. Step 5 followed by step 6. So, if you observe it clearly, in these two instructions 4 and 5, it execute either 4 or 5 but not both. That either 5 or 4 depends on the given condition what we considered in the step 3. So, some selection is going on there. It decides or it selects to execute either 4 or 5. That is why such algorithms are called as selection algorithms. So, here we need to apply the selection process, selection principle or selection logic. How we find the selection, how we apply that selection there, that based on the logic or the condition what we specified previously, right. The next type of algorithm is iterative algorithms. Iteration, also called repetition, loop. This iteration also called a loop. What is a loop? What is an iteration? Iteration, also called repetition or iteration or loop. Different names are there. All the terms are same only. Iterative algorithms or repetition algorithms or looping. Algorithms often use the repetitions to execute the steps a certain number of times or until the condition becomes or the condition it met. It repeats some of the steps until it reaches the condition. So, repetition. So, repeating some of the statements for some many times is called repetition. That iteration logic employs a loop which is involved to repeat the statement followed by a module known as the body of the loop. So, while it is moving, what are the steps need to be considered? What steps need to be repeated? So, those many statements are executed continuously for some specific number of times. That we call as repetition. Repeat, 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 repeat. Take the example. I think you all know the imposition. What is the meaning of imposition? In our schooling, our ma'am or our sir will tell us that if we did any mistake, they will give us the imposition. So, write it for 5 times, write it for 10 times or write it for 100 times. What is the meaning of that, the imposition? They give a question to you and they tell you to write it for 10 times. Means same question only, same answer only you need to write. How many times you need to write? 10 times. So, you will write it for first time and then second time, third time, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When you reach to the 10th time, when you complete the 10th iteration, that is nothing but an iteration. When you complete the 10th time, what will you do? What you have to do there? Simply you stop. You completed your task. Writing is nothing but the same question only, same answer only you are writing. But again. It's simply called as iteration or loop. So, there we should follow one thing. We should identify the end. Means, if your faculty simply told that write it or repeat it. So, I am giving an imposition to you. So, this is the imposition question, you start writing. Is your faculty told to write it for 10 times or 20 times or any number of times? No. So, you have any clarity there? How many times need to be right? No. What they simply told, this is the imposition, you start it. They didn't specify any number, nothing. No number they specified, how many times need to be right. In such cases, how many times will you write? Is it 1 time, 2 times, 5 times, 10 times, 100? Do you have any clarity? No. Such conditions we call as infinity conditions, also called infinite loop. So, how many times will you write there? There is no end. In iterations, that should be very clear. While specifying the algorithm or while writing that iterations, you should specify the exit condition where you have to stop. See the example. Find the sum of the natural numbers. Sum of the natural numbers. What are the natural numbers? What are the natural numbers? 1, 2, 3 and so on. Sum of the natural numbers. Is it the sum of first natural numbers? First 10 or first 15 or first 20? That should be clear, right? Natural numbers are nothing but there is no end to a natural number. To infinity we can take. There is no end. So, sum of the natural numbers while doing that. So, before writing an algorithm, okay, good, we know the requirements. What are those requirements? Need to identify the input first and then task need to be identified. After that, the output, what it should produce. We should be aware of these 3 and then only we have to start. What is our input here? Take the natural numbers. That is our input. Is it first 10 natural numbers or first 20 or 30 or 5? Up to what? So, assume it as n. First n natural numbers. It may be 5. For suppose assume the sum of first 5 natural numbers. Means 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. If assume n as 10. So, 1 plus 2 plus 3 and so on up to 10. If it is 100, so 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus and so on 100. So, that we should identify, that is nothing but our input. Coming to the task. What is the task here? Sum, addition of those numbers. What is the output? What it should produce? The sum of those numbers, right? So, these are the requirements. Now, we are very clear about the task, what we have. Start the algorithm. Good. First step is nothing but start and then come to the next step. Read the value of n. So, means what is n we considered? Which value we are storing in n? So, how many natural number sum you want to calculate? Is it the first 5 or first 10 or first 50 or something? That should be stored in n. And then, here 2 variables we considered, I as well as the sum. Why we considered here 2? And these 2 are initialized with different values 1 and 0. Why we initialized I with 1 and why sum with 0? 1, because I equal to 1. I is the variable which is used to count the number of terms, number of values. If it is first 5, sum of first 5 numbers, how we start finding the sum? First we will start with the first number, the natural number 1, plus we will move to the next 2. And then to this sum we will add 3. So, it is 3 plus 3 which produce 6. To this 6 we will add 4. To this we will add the next number 5. So, how many numbers we are moving? How many numbers we added? for counting that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for counting these many, here we considered a variable I. And why we started I with 1? Why 1 is initialized to the? Because usually the sum of natural numbers means the natural number starting number will take as 1. That's why we started here 1. You can start it with 2. You can start with 3. That depends on the question. But here our question is simply they specified as sum of natural numbers only. So natural number starting number generally will take as 1. That's why I is initialized with the 1. Then coming to the next variable sum. Sum equal to 0. What is sum and why it is initialized to 0? Sum is nothing but a variable which is used to store the output, and it is also used to store the partial output. What is partial output? Nothing but, see this. Here first we are taking 1, okay, good. To that we are adding 2, so it produces 3. This 3 will assign to sum temporarily. Is it the final value? No. We should find the sum of the first 5 natural numbers. Till now we added only 2, 1 and 2 only. We should add 3 also, 1 and 2 only we added. 1 plus 2, it produced 3. 3 becomes the partial output. This is not the complete output. So this partial output temporarily we store in a variable sum. And while we are taking the next number 3, that 3 will be added to the value which is stored in sum. So already 3 is there in sum, and plus 3 we are adding to the next number. So it becomes 6. So now 6 is assigned to the variable sum. And then we will move to the next number 4. Now what is the value in sum? 6. Now add 4 to this. It becomes 10. So this 10 is stored in sum. And then take the next number 5 plus 5. What it produces? The sum is 5 and which is stored in sum. And take the next number 6. Can we take 6 here? What is our limit? What extent we considered here? The number n we considered as 5. First 5 natural numbers only. When it moves to the next number 6, simply it stop there. And what is stored in the variable sum, that will be displayed to the user as the output. See that. Each time we will check, is we reach it to the maximum limit or not. If we reach it to the maximum limit, then we have to stop. Otherwise, we need to repeat the step. We started from 1. N is 5. So 1, is it greater than 5 or less than 5? False. If it is false, sum equal to sum plus 1. Initial value of sum is 0, plus 1 will add to this. Now sum becomes 1. And then take the next number. We should move to the next. 1 we completed. Now we are coming to the next number. How we are coming? By incrementing the value of I. So I plus 1. Previous value of I is 1 plus 1, which equal to 2. Now here it moves to step 3. So go to step 3. From step 2 to here it comes. And here it checks. Now I value is 2. Likewise, it repeat the process till I reaches to 6. When I equal to 6, 6 is greater than 5, right? 6 is greater than 5. If 6, is it true or false? True. If this is true, then it go to stop. So it is step 8. So the step 8 is nothing but it print the value of s and it stop executing the process. This is nothing but the iteration. Here these steps, step 5 and 6, these two are repeated for how many times? 5 times. The same set of statements only. Those are repeated for 5 times. That is called iteration. What is the algorithm for finding the area and the perimeter of a square? Identify the input, what is the task need to be performed, and what is the output. What is the algorithm for finding the entire number, to find whether the entire number is even or odd? In our previous example, we found that whether the entire number is positive or negative. Is it positive or negative? But here our task is it even or odd? Even or odd? How to find? Take a number and divide it with 2. If the result it gives, the remainder is equal to 0, we can tell that number as even. If this is not equal to 0, that number we can tell as odd number. What is the algorithm for finding whether the entire number is even or odd? What is the algorithm to find the sum of the squares of first and natural numbers? Sum of squares of first and natural numbers. In our previous example, simply we discussed that sum of natural numbers only, means 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 and so on. But here it is sum of squares of the first and natural numbers. Assume n as 5. Sum of squares n equal to 5 only. Sum of squares. Usually the natural numbers means first 5 natural numbers means 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. First 5 natural numbers. This is not the simple sum of natural numbers. Sum of squares of the natural numbers. Square. 1 square plus 2 square, 3 square, 4 square, 5 square. Sum. Plus, 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 plus. So what we need to find here in this? 1 square plus 2 square plus 3 square plus 4 square plus 5 square. Because n we considered as 5. If you take n as 10, then plus 6 square plus 7 square up to 10 square. Right? What is the algorithm for finding the area and perimeter of the square? Algorithm to find whether the entire number is even or odd, positive or negative, and algorithm to find the sum of first and natural numbers. Just practice. Thank you.